The morning light filtered through the tall windows of the West Side Rehabilitation Center, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors. Marcus Chen pushed his cart down the pristine hallway, the wheels turning silently on the expensive flooring. At 32, he moved with the careful precision of someone who had learned to make himself invisible, his dark hair neatly trimmed, his blue uniform crisp despite the early hour. The rehabilitation center catered to the wealthy and powerful, their chrome and glass architecture speaking of money and influence. Marcus had worked here for 18 months, arriving each morning at 6 to prepare the therapy rooms before the real staff arrived. Physical therapy assistant, his badge read, though most days he felt more like a glorified janitor. He paused outside therapy room 3, watching through the observation window as Dr. Richard Sterling conducted his morning rounds. The distinguished physician, with his silver hair and expensive suit, gestured authoritatively to a group of younger therapists. His voice carried through the slightly open door. "You must understand that neurological rehabilitation requires years of specialized training," Dr. Sterling was saying. "These patients come to us because we represent the pinnacle of medical excellence. There are no shortcuts, no miracle cures, only proven methodologies applied with precision." Marcus adjusted his grip on the cart handle, his knuckles showing white for just a moment. 20 years ago, he might have been in that room, part of that discussion. 20 years ago, before life had other plans. His phone buzzed softly in his pocket. A text from Mrs. Patterson, his neighbor. "Lily is having breakfast and asking when Daddy comes home. Tell her I love her," he typed back quickly, then slipped the phone away. Dr. Sterling's voice grew louder. "The key to success in this field is understanding your limitations. Not everyone is equipped to handle complex cases. Some people are meant to support, not lead." Marcus began moving again, his cart wheels whispering against the floor. He had learned to time his rounds perfectly, cleaning and preparing rooms when they were empty, restocking supplies without interrupting the important work of others. Invisible was safer. Invisible meant he could provide for Lily without complications. He entered the supply room and began counting inventory. Resistance bands, balance balls, electrical stimulation units. Each piece of equipment worth more than he made in a month. His hands moved automatically through the familiar routine while his mind wandered to his 6-year-old daughter, probably finishing her cereal right now and asking Mrs. Patterson about every bird she saw outside the window. The sound of voices in the hallway made him look up. A woman was speaking in rapid, urgent tones. "Money is not an object," she was saying. "I need the best possible care for my daughter. Whatever it costs." Marcus stepped closer to the door, not meaning to eavesdrop but unable to help himself when he heard the desperation in her voice. He caught a glimpse of her through the gap, an elegant woman in her 30s with dark hair pulled back severely, her designer clothes unable to hide the exhaustion in her posture. Dr. Sterling's response was smooth, professional. "Mrs. Vasquez, I assure you that Sophia will receive the finest care available anywhere in the world. Our success rate with pediatric spinal injuries is unmatched." The woman's voice cracked slightly. "She has not moved her legs in 6 months. The doctors in Switzerland, in Germany, they all say the same thing. But I will not accept that she will never walk again." Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. A child. Another little girl whose world had changed in an instant, just like his Lily's had when her mother died. He closed his eyes for a moment, remembering different hallways, different voices discussing cases and possibilities and limitations. "Where in the world are you watching from right now? What time is it where you are?" Sometimes the most important moments happen when we think no one is looking, when the people others overlook are the ones who see what really matters. The voices moved away down the hallway, leaving Marcus alone with his inventory sheets and the weight of things he could not say. 3 hours later, Marcus wheeled his cart past the VIP wing where the most exclusive patients received treatment. Through the reinforced glass doors, he could see the luxurious rooms that looked more like hotel suites than medical facilities. Leather recliners, flat-screen televisions, and windows overlooking the city skyline created an atmosphere designed to make the wealthy feel comfortable while they healed. He was replacing towels in the adjacent supply closet when he heard the soft sound of crying. Marcus paused, listening. The sound came again, muffled but unmistakably that of a child trying not to be heard. His heart clenched as memories of Lily's quiet sobs after her mother's funeral flooded back. Setting down his supplies, Marcus moved toward the sound. Through a partially open door, he saw a small girl in a wheelchair, her back turned to him. She had long dark hair like her mother's, and she was holding a tablet in her lap, but her shoulders shook with suppressed tears. The girl looked up as a shadow fell across the doorway. Her eyes were large and dark, maybe 8 years old, with the kind of sadness that children should never have to carry. She quickly wiped her face with the back of her hand. "I am sorry," she said quietly, her accent carrying a slight Spanish inflection like her mother's. "I did not mean to be loud." Marcus glanced down the hallway, then stepped just inside the doorway. "You were not loud at all," he said gently. "I only heard because I was right outside. Are you Sophia?" The girl nodded, then looked down at her legs covered by a soft blue blanket. "The doctors, they keep saying I will get better, but it has been so long. Mama spends all her money trying to help me, but nothing changes." Marcus felt the familiar ache in his chest, the same feeling he got when Lily asked why other children had 2 parents and she only had 1. "Sometimes healing takes time," he said carefully. "Sometimes it happens in ways we do not expect." Sophia's tablet slipped from her lap toward the floor. Marcus caught it smoothly, his reflexes still sharp from years of medical training. As he handed it back, he noticed what she had been looking at. Videos of children dancing, running, playing soccer. Dreams of movement captured in pixels and light. "You like to dance?" he asked. "Before, yes." Sophia's voice was barely a whisper. "Mama says maybe someday I will dance again, but I think she is just being nice. The famous doctors, they use big words I do not understand, but their faces tell me the truth." Marcus knelt beside her wheelchair, bringing himself to her eye level. His voice was soft but certain. "I have learned that faces can lie just as much as words can. Sometimes the people who know the most forget that every person is different. Every situation is unique." Sophia studied his face with the intensity that only children possess. "You are not a doctor, are you? You are the man who brings the clean towels." "That is right. But sometimes the people who bring clean towels see things differently than the people who wear white coats." A voice echoed from down the hallway. "Sophia? Where are you, mi amor?" Sophia straightened in her wheelchair. "That is Mama. She worries when she cannot see me." Marcus stood and moved back toward the doorway. "It was nice to meet you, Sophia. Remember what I said about healing happening in unexpected ways." Elena Vasquez appeared in the hallway, her designer heels clicking against the marble floor. She wore a different outfit than this morning, but the same exhaustion shadowed her eyes. When she saw Marcus near Sophia's room, her expression became guarded. "Is everything all right?" Elena asked, her tone polite but protective. "Yes, Mama," Sophia said quickly. "The towel man was just being nice because I dropped my tablet." Marcus nodded respectfully to Elena. "Your daughter is very brave," he said simply, then continued pushing his cart down the hallway. Behind him, he heard Elena's voice, soft and questioning. "What did he say to you, mi amor?" Sophia's response followed him as he walked away. "He said healing happens in ways we do not expect, Mama. Do you think that is true?" Marcus did not hear Elena's answer, but as he turned the corner, he carried with him the image of a little girl who still dreamed of dancing, and a mother who would move mountains to make those dreams possible again. In his pocket, his phone buzzed with another text from Mrs. Patterson. "Lily wants to know if you will help her practice ballet when you get home." He smiled despite everything. Sometimes the universe had a sense of timing that defied explanation. The next morning brought rain against the windows of the rehabilitation center, each droplet racing down the glass like tears. Marcus arrived earlier than usual, wanting to finish his preparations before the day shift began. The building felt different in these quiet hours, less imposing somehow, more like a place where healing might actually happen. He was organizing the equipment in therapy room 5 when he heard the familiar sound of wheels against marble. Sophia's wheelchair appeared in the doorway, moving slowly as she navigated with small, determined pushes against the rims. "You are here very early," she said, parking herself just inside the room. Marcus looked up from the balance mats he was stacking. "So are you. Does your mama know you are exploring?" Sophia shook her head, then looked guilty. "She is sleeping. She stays up all night reading medical papers on her computer. She thinks I do not notice, but I hear her crying sometimes." The honesty in her voice made Marcus stop what he was doing. 8 years old, and already carrying the weight of her mother's pain. He had seen it before, during his time in the pediatric ward. Children who grew up too fast because the adults around them were drowning in circumstances beyond their control. "That must be hard to hear," Marcus said, settling onto a nearby stool so he could look at her directly. Sophia nodded. "I try to be brave for her. The doctors say if I work very hard in therapy, maybe I will get better. But the exercises they give me, they do not feel right. Like they are not really for me." Marcus felt something stir in his chest, the same instinct that had guided him through emergency rooms and field hospitals. "What do you mean they do not feel right?" Sophia thought for a moment, her young face serious. "When Dr. Sterling makes me do the leg exercises, it feels like he is moving someone else's legs. Like the exercises are for a different kind of hurt than mine. But I do not know how to explain that to grown-ups." The wisdom of children, Marcus thought. Often they understood their own bodies better than the experts who treated them. He had seen it countless times, patients who knew instinctively what they needed but were dismissed because they lacked medical degrees. "What would feel right?" he asked carefully. Sophia's eyes brightened slightly. "Sometimes I close my eyes and imagine that my legs are sleeping, like in the fairy tale. And I think maybe if I could wake them up gently, instead of trying to force them, they might remember how to work." Marcus felt his breath catch. She was describing exactly the approach he would take, the gentle neurological awakening techniques he had learned during his residency. Techniques that Dr. Sterling's aggressive methods completely ignored. "That is a very smart way to think about it," Marcus said. "Your legs went through something scary. Maybe they need to feel safe before they can remember how to move." "Yes," Sophia said, leaning forward in her wheelchair. "Exactly like that. But when I try to tell Dr. Sterling, he says children do not understand their own medical conditions." Marcus stood and moved to the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. In his reflection, he could see Sophia watching him, waiting for some kind of answer that would make sense of her world. "Can I tell you something, Sophia?" he said, turning back to her. "Sometimes the people who understand best are the ones who listen to what the hurt feels like, not just what the books say it should be." Sophia nodded eagerly. "You listen like that." Marcus smiled, the first genuine smile he had felt in this building. "Maybe that is because I know what it feels like when people do not see who you really are." The sound of footsteps in the hallway made them both look toward the door. Dr. Sterling's voice carried from the nurse's station, discussing treatment protocols with his morning team. Marcus moved back to his equipment stack, resuming his work as Sophia quietly turned her wheelchair toward the door. "I should go back before Mama wakes up," she said. "But Marcus? Will you be here tomorrow?" Marcus nodded. "I will be here." "Good," Sophia said. "Tomorrow maybe you can tell me more about listening to what hurt feels like." As she wheeled herself away, Marcus stood among the therapy equipment that surrounded him like silent witnesses. Machines worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, designed to restore movement and strength. Yet none of them could provide what Sophia needed most. Someone who saw her as more than a medical puzzle to be solved. He picked up a resistance band, testing its tension between his hands. Such simple tools, really. But in the right hands, with the right understanding, they could help a little girl remember how to dream of dancing again. Outside, the rain continued its steady rhythm against the windows, marking time until tomorrow would bring another chance to listen. The days following Marcus's conversation with Elena fell into a careful rhythm of observation and restraint. He continued his maintenance duties while watching Sophia's regular therapy sessions with Dr. Sterling, each one confirming his growing certainty that the aggressive approach was not only failing but actively hindering her recovery. During one particularly difficult session, Marcus was cleaning the adjacent hallway when he heard Sophia cry out in pain. Dr. Sterling's voice followed immediately, sharp with impatience. "Sophia, you must cooperate with the treatment. Your lack of progress is directly related to your resistance to proper therapy." Through the observation window, Marcus could see Sophia's small body rigid with tension on the therapy table. Dr. Sterling was forcing her legs through range of motion exercises with mechanical precision, treating her limbs like broken machinery that needed aggressive repair rather than delicate neural pathways requiring gentle coaxing. Elena stood in the corner, her hands pressed against her mouth as she watched her daughter endure what was supposed to be healing. When Sophia whimpered again, Elena stepped forward. "Please, doctor, she is clearly in distress." "Distress is temporary," Dr. Sterling replied without pausing his manipulations. "Function is permanent. Sophia needs to understand that recovery requires sacrifice." Marcus gripped his cleaning cloth tighter, remembering his own training in pediatric care. Children's nervous systems responded to safety and trust, not force and intimidation. What he was witnessing would create trauma associations with movement that could delay recovery for years. The session ended with Sophia exhausted and withdrawn, her earlier curiosity about her condition replaced by resigned compliance. As Elena wheeled her from the room, Sophia's posture had returned to the defeated slump Marcus had first noticed weeks ago. That evening, Marcus sat at his kitchen table helping Lily with her homework while his mind churned with frustration. Lily was practicing writing letters, her tongue poking out in concentration as she formed careful curves and lines. "Daddy," Lily said suddenly, looking up from her paper. "At school today, Tommy fell off the monkey bars and hurt his arm. The nurse did not yell at him or make him move it when it hurt. She was very gentle and gave him ice cream after the doctor looked at it." Marcus set down his coffee cup, struck by his daughter's observation. "That sounds like a very smart nurse. She said that when people are hurt, being gentle helps them heal faster than being mean. Even if being mean might work, being gentle works better because it does not make people scared." The simplicity of Lily's understanding hit Marcus like lightning. A 6-year-old girl had articulated what Dr. Sterling's 20 years of experience had somehow missed. Healing required safety, not just technical intervention. "Do you think that is true, Daddy?" Lily asked. "That gentle works better than mean?" Marcus pulled her onto his lap, thinking about Sophia's tears, about Elena's desperation, about his own careful silence in the face of suffering he knew how to address. "Yes, sweetheart. I think that is very true." That night, after Lily was asleep, Marcus sat in his small living room reviewing medical journals on his laptop. The research was clear: pediatric spinal cord injury recovery rates improved dramatically when treatment prioritized psychological safety alongside physical intervention. Gentle sensory integration, patient-guided pacing, and trauma-informed care produced measurably better outcomes than aggressive protocols. He found himself drafting an email to Elena, then deleting it. Writing it again, then closing the laptop. The risk of reaching out directly was enormous. His job, his ability to provide for Lily, everything depended on maintaining his invisible status at the rehabilitation center. But as he prepared for bed, Marcus kept hearing Lily's voice. "Being gentle helps them heal faster than being mean." And Sophia's question echoed alongside it. "Could you help her remember?" Sometimes the hardest decisions were the ones that required choosing between personal safety and doing what was right. Marcus had faced that choice before, in field hospitals where protocols said one thing but patient need demanded another. Tomorrow would bring another day of watching Sophia suffer through treatments that ignored everything he knew about healing. Another day of Elena's quiet desperation as she watched conventional medicine fail her daughter. Marcus turned off the lights and made his decision in the darkness. Some promises were worth any risk. That evening, Marcus arrived home to find Lily practicing ballet positions in their small living room, her arms stretched gracefully above her head. The sight stopped him in the doorway, his work bag still hanging from his shoulder. She wore the pink leotard Sarah had bought her just weeks before the accident, now slightly too small but still her favorite. "Look, Daddy," Lily said, attempting a wobbly arabesque. "Mrs. Patterson showed me this one from a video. Do you think Mama would be proud?" Marcus set down his bag and knelt on the carpet beside her. "Your Mama would be so proud she would probably cry happy tears," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You are becoming such a beautiful dancer." Lily beamed and spun in a circle, her arms outstretched like a bird in flight. "Mrs. Patterson says maybe I can take real ballet classes someday. The kind where you wear special shoes and dance on a big stage." "Maybe you can," Marcus agreed, though he mentally calculated the cost of ballet lessons against their monthly budget. His salary at the rehabilitation center barely covered rent and groceries, let alone extras like dance classes. Lily settled onto the couch beside him, her small hand finding his. "How was work today, Daddy? Did you help any people feel better?" Marcus thought about Sophia's tears, about Elena's desperate frustration, about Dr. Sterling's rigid certainty. "Did you know that sometimes the best way to help someone is just to listen to them?" he asked. Lily nodded seriously. "Like when I am sad about Mama and you do not try to make me happy right away. You just let me be sad first." "Exactly like that." Marcus pulled her closer, marveling at her wisdom. Sometimes adults forget that feelings need space before they can change. As Lily curled against his side, Marcus found his thoughts drifting back to the rehabilitation center. Sophia's words echoed in his mind. "The exercises do not feel right. Like they are for someone else's hurt." In his years of medical training, he had learned that patients often possessed crucial insights about their own conditions, insights that were frequently dismissed by healthcare providers focused on protocols rather than individuals. Dr. Sterling's approach to Sophia's case followed standard neurological rehabilitation guidelines perfectly. Aggressive range of motion exercises, electrical stimulation, progressive weight-bearing activities. All proven methods with documented success rates. But success rates were statistics, not individuals. They did not account for an 80-year-old girl who described her paralysis as legs that were sleeping, waiting to be gently awakened. Marcus had seen similar cases during his medical school rotations. Pediatric patients whose neural pathways required different stimulation patterns than adults. Gentle proprioceptive input rather than forceful manipulation. Patient-guided discovery rather than provider-imposed protocols. Techniques that Dr. Sterling would undoubtedly consider unscientific, touchy-feely nonsense. "Daddy?" Lily's voice pulled him back to the present. "You look like you are thinking about something important." "I am thinking about a little girl I met at work," Marcus said carefully. "She wants to dance just like you do, but her legs are not working right now." Lily sat up, her eyes wide with concern. "Is she very sad?" "Sometimes, yes. But she is also very brave." "Maybe her legs just forgot how to dance," Lily said with the simple logic of childhood. "Like when I forget how to tie my shoes and then you show me again and my fingers remember." Marcus stared at his daughter, struck by the clarity of her observation. "Maybe they just forgot," he repeated slowly. "And maybe they need someone to help them remember gently." "Could you help her remember?" Lily asked. "You help me when I forget things." The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Marcus thought about his position at the rehabilitation center, about the careful invisibility he had cultivated to protect his job and provide for Lily. About Dr. Sterling's authority and Elena's desperation and Sophia's quiet tears. "I do not know if I am allowed to help her in that way," he said finally. Lily frowned, the expression making her look startlingly like her mother. "But Daddy, if you know how to help someone and you do not help them, does not that make you sad inside?" Marcus felt something crack open in his chest, a door he had kept carefully locked for 2 years. "Yes, sweetheart. It does make me sad inside." "Then maybe you should try to help her, even if it is scary." Outside their apartment window, the rain continued falling, washing the city clean for whatever tomorrow might bring. Marcus held his daughter close and wondered if a 6-year-old child had just given him the courage to risk everything he had worked so carefully to protect. What part of this story resonates most with you? Have you ever known something was right but felt afraid to act on it? Share your thoughts with our community below. The following day, Marcus found himself assigned to deep cleaning the VIP wing during therapy hours. As he worked, he could hear Dr. Sterling's voice from Sophia's room, loud and authoritative as he directed her treatment session. "We need to increase the intensity, Sophia," the doctor was saying. "Your muscles are not responding because you are not pushing hard enough. Weakness will not restore function." Through the gap in the door, Marcus could see Sophia's face contorted with pain and effort as Dr. Sterling manipulated her legs through aggressive range of motion exercises. The child's knuckles were white where she gripped the sides of the therapy table, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. "Pain is temporary," Dr. Sterling continued, seemingly oblivious to Sophia's distress. "Progress requires sacrifice. Your mother is paying for results, not comfort." Elena stood in the corner of the room, her own face pale as she watched her daughter suffer. When Sophia let out a small cry of pain, Elena stepped forward. "Perhaps we could take a short break?" Dr. Sterling did not pause in his manipulations. "Breaks allow the muscles to forget the progress we have made. Sophia needs to understand that healing is not pleasant." Marcus felt his jaw clench as he watched the scene unfold. This was not therapy. This was trauma disguised as medicine. He had seen too many cases where aggressive treatment had actually delayed healing, where the nervous system shut down in response to painful stimulation. Sophia's eyes found his through the doorway, and in that moment of connection, Marcus saw something that made his decision for him. Not just pain, but resignation. The look of a child who was learning to accept that healing meant suffering, that hope came with a price of agony. 15 minutes later, Dr. Sterling emerged from the room, checking his expensive watch. The session concluded with Sophia lying motionless on the therapy table, staring at the ceiling with vacant eyes. Elena sat beside her daughter, stroking her hair and whispering apologies in Spanish. Marcus waited until Dr. Sterling disappeared around the corner, then knocked softly on the doorframe. "Excuse me, Mrs. Vasquez. I brought fresh towels." Elena looked up, her face streaked with tears she had not bothered to hide. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice hoarse from holding back sobs. Marcus entered the room and began replacing towels at the sink, his movements deliberate and slow. As he worked, he spoke quietly, his words seemingly directed at his task. Sometimes when children are hurt, their nervous systems become very protective. Like a frightened animal that needs to feel safe before it can trust again. Elena's head turned toward him, her attention suddenly focused. "What do you mean?" Marcus continued folding towels, not looking directly at her. "Just something I learned once. That forcing movement can sometimes make the nervous system shut down more completely. But gentle approaches that honor what the body is telling you, sometimes those can wake up pathways that aggression cannot reach." Sophia turned her head on the therapy table, listening intently. "You mean like my legs being asleep instead of broken?" Marcus finally looked at her, his expression gentle but serious. "What do you think, Sophia? When someone is sleeping and you need to wake them up, do you shake them hard or do you whisper their name softly?" "I whisper," Sophia said immediately. "Shaking makes people scared when they wake up." "Exactly." Marcus moved to the therapy table and, without touching her, gestured toward her legs. What if your legs need to be whispered to instead of shaken? Elena stood abruptly, moving closer to Marcus. Who are you? She asked, her voice intense but not hostile. You are not just a maintenance worker. The way you speak, the things you understand. Marcus met her gaze steadily. I am someone who believes every person deserves to be heard, especially children. And I am someone who has learned that the gentlest approach is often the strongest. What is your background? Elena pressed. What training do you have? Before Marcus could answer, Dr. Sterling's voice echoed from the hallway, discussing schedules with his assistant. Marcus quickly gathered his towel cart. I should go, he said. But Mrs. Vasquez, trust what Sophia tells you about her own body. Children often know things that adults have forgotten how to hear. Elena caught his arm gently as he moved toward the door. What is your name? Marcus Chen. And your daughter is very wise. Listen to her. As Marcus left the room, he heard Sophia's voice, stronger than it had been all day. Mama, I think the towel man understands about whispering to sleeping legs. Elena's response was thoughtful, confused. I think you might be right, mi amor. I think he understands things that other people do not. Marcus pushed his cart down the hallway, his heart racing with the knowledge that he had just crossed a line he could not uncross. But as he thought about Sophia's resigned acceptance of pain, about Lily's innocent wisdom, about Elena's desperate love, he realized that some lines were meant to be crossed. The afternoon light slanted through the windows, casting new shadows across familiar floors. The next morning brought an unexpected change to the rehabilitation center's routine. Elena Vasquez arrived early, before Dr. Sterling's usual rounds, and Marcus noticed her watching him as he prepared the therapy rooms. She followed at a distance as he moved through his tasks, her observation careful and deliberate. When Marcus entered the supply room to inventory equipment, Elena appeared in the doorway. Mr. Chen, she said quietly. May I speak with you privately? Marcus glanced around the empty hallway, then nodded. Of course, Mrs. Vasquez. Elena stepped into the small room and closed the door behind her. Last night I could not sleep, so I researched everything you said about gentle approaches to neurological rehabilitation. What I found was fascinating. There are indeed alternative methodologies, approaches that prioritize neural pathway preservation over aggressive stimulation. Marcus continued organizing supplies, his hands steady despite his racing pulse. That is interesting. What I could not find, Elena continued, was any mention of these techniques in Dr. Sterling's published papers or treatment protocols. Which makes me wonder why a man who brings towels would know about cutting-edge neurological research that a renowned specialist apparently ignores. Marcus set down the resistance bands he was sorting and turned to face her directly. What are you asking me, Mrs. Vasquez? I am asking who you really are. Elena's voice was gentle but insistent. I am asking why you understand my daughter's condition better than doctors who charge $5,000 per session. The silence stretched between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Marcus thought about Lily, about their small apartment, about the careful life he had built from the ashes of his former dreams. Then he thought about Sophia's tears yesterday, about the resignation in her 80-year-old eyes. I was a medic in the army, he said finally. After my service, I went to medical school. I specialized in pediatric neurological rehabilitation during my residency. Elena's eyes widened. You are a doctor? I was training to be one. Marcus looked down at his hands, hands that had once sutured wounds in field hospitals and guided children through their first steps after trauma. My wife, she was also military. A convoy accident in Afghanistan. She died while I was still in residency, and suddenly I had a 6-month-old daughter to raise alone. Elena's expression softened with understanding. So you left medicine. Medical school does not accommodate single fathers very well. The hours, the demands, the financial pressure. I had to choose between becoming a doctor and being the father Lily needed. Marcus met her eyes. It was not really a choice at all. But you still remember. You still know. Yes, I still know. And what I know is that Sophia's case is being approached completely wrong. Her neural pathways are not damaged beyond repair. They are dormant, waiting for the right kind of stimulation to reawaken them. Elena leaned against the supply shelves, her business executive composure finally cracking completely. Then why does Dr. Sterling insist on treatments that cause her so much pain? Because aggressive intervention shows immediate muscle response, which looks like progress to insurance companies and worried parents. But it can actually inhibit long-term neural recovery by creating trauma associations with movement. What would you do differently? Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, weighing his words carefully. I would start with sensory integration. Light touch, gentle movement, playful exercises that feel like games rather than medical procedures. I would let Sophia guide the pace, trust her instincts about what feels right. Elena closed her eyes. How long would that take? There are no guarantees in medicine, Mrs. Vasquez. But I have seen children with injuries similar to Sophia's regain function when treatment honored their nervous system's need for safety and trust. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made them both freeze. Dr. Sterling's voice carried from the nurse's station, discussing the morning schedule. Elena quickly opened the supply room door, then paused. Mr. Chen, she said quietly. Tomorrow is Saturday. The center is closed for private sessions. If Sophia happened to be here for additional therapy, would you be available to assist? Marcus understood exactly what she was asking. It would mean risking everything he had carefully built. But as he thought about Sophia's face yesterday, about Lily's question about helping people remember, he found himself nodding. I would be honored to assist, he said. Elena smiled for the first time since he had known her. Thank you, Marcus. Thank you for seeing my daughter. What resonates with you most in this moment? Have you ever had to choose between playing it safe and doing what felt right? We would love to hear your thoughts. Saturday morning arrived gray and quiet, the rehabilitation center empty except for the security guard who barely looked up as Elena's private car pulled into the executive parking area. Marcus had arrived an hour earlier, using his maintenance key card to access the building and prepare therapy room 3 with equipment Dr. Sterling never used. Soft foam rollers, textured balls for sensory input, resistance bands with the gentlest tension settings. He arranged them not like medical devices but like toys, creating an environment that felt safe rather than clinical. The morning light streaming through the windows made everything seem possible. Sophia's wheelchair appeared in the doorway, Elena pushing carefully behind her. The little girl wore comfortable clothes instead of hospital gowns, and Marcus noticed immediately that her posture was different. More relaxed, less guarded. Good morning, Sophia, Marcus said, settling onto the floor at her eye level. How are your legs feeling today? Sophia considered the question seriously. Like they are still sleeping, but maybe not as deeply as before. Yesterday after you talked to Mama, I felt something different. Like maybe they heard you. Elena positioned Sophia's wheelchair near the exercise mats, then stepped back. I researched your methods all night, she said to Marcus. Proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. Sensory integration therapy. Neuroplasticity-based rehabilitation. Why is Dr. Sterling not using any of these approaches? Because they require patience and they do not produce immediate visible results, Marcus said honestly. Insurance companies prefer treatments they can measure quickly. But neural recovery is not about forcing function. It is about creating conditions where function can return naturally. He picked up one of the textured balls, rolling it gently between his hands. Sophia, would you like to play a game with your legs? A very gentle game where we ask them nicely to wake up. Sophia's eyes lit up with curiosity instead of the dread Marcus had seen before her sessions with Dr. Sterling. What kind of game? Marcus moved to kneel beside her wheelchair. First, We are going to help your legs remember what it feels like to be touched in a friendly way. No pushing, no forcing. Just gentle reminders that they are still part of you. He placed the textured ball in Sophia's hands. Close your eyes, Sophia. Now, very lightly, roll this over your leg. Not to make anything happen, just to say hello. Sophia closed her eyes and began moving the ball over her thigh with feather-like touches. Marcus watched her face, noting the subtle changes in her expression as she focused on the sensations. What do you feel? He asked softly. It is warm, Sophia said, her voice filled with wonder. And I can feel the bumps on the ball. I have not felt my legs in so long, I forgot they could feel things. Elena covered her mouth with her hand, tears starting to flow as she watched her daughter's face transform with discovery rather than pain. This was the first time in 6 months that Sophia had reported any sensation in her lower limbs. Now, Marcus said gently, keeping his voice calm and encouraging, imagine that the ball is whispering to your leg, asking it very politely to remember how to feel alive. Sophia continued the gentle rolling motion, her breathing deep and relaxed. I think it is working, she whispered. I think my leg is starting to listen. Marcus guided her through several more sensory exercises, each one designed to reawaken dormant neural pathways without triggering defensive responses. He watched for signs of fatigue or distress, but Sophia remained engaged and curious throughout the session. After 30 minutes, he helped Sophia transfer back to her wheelchair. Her face was flushed with excitement rather than exhaustion. Mama, did you see? My legs remembered how to feel the ball. Elena knelt beside Sophia's wheelchair, her voice thick with emotion. Yes, mi amor. I saw. Your legs are very smart to remember so quickly. Marcus began putting away the equipment, his movements careful and methodical. Mrs. Vasquez, what Sophia accomplished today is significant. But this is just the beginning. Neural reawakening requires consistent, patient work over time. Elena stood, her business executive demeanor returning as she processed what she had witnessed. How often would these sessions need to happen? Daily would be ideal, Marcus said. But even 3 times per week could make a substantial difference. The key is consistency and Sophia's comfort level. Elena was quiet for a moment, clearly calculating options and risks. Dr. Sterling would never approve this approach. No, Marcus agreed. He would not. But you would be willing to continue these sessions? Elena asked. Even though it goes against the established protocol here? Marcus looked at Sophia, who was still running her hands over her legs with gentle wonder. For Sophia, yes. I would be willing. Elena extended her hand to Marcus, her grip firm and decisive. Then we have an agreement, Mr. Chen. Whatever it takes to help my daughter remember how to walk. As they shook hands, Marcus felt the weight of the commitment he was making. There would be consequences if they were discovered. But watching Sophia smile as she traced circles on her thighs, feeling sensations she had thought were lost forever, he knew some risks were worth taking. 2 weeks of secret Saturday sessions had transformed Sophia in ways that could not be hidden. She sat straighter in her wheelchair, her eyes bright with hope instead of resignation. During her regular appointments with Dr. Sterling, she had begun reporting sensations that confused and frustrated the physician. Marcus was cleaning the windows in the main hallway when he overheard Dr. Sterling speaking to his colleague, Dr. Martinez, near the nurse's station. The conversation made his blood run cold. The Vasquez girl is experiencing phantom sensations, Dr. Sterling was saying, his voice carrying the authority of absolute certainty. It is not uncommon in long-term paralysis cases. The brain creates false signals to cope with the reality of permanent dysfunction. Dr. Martinez nodded thoughtfully. How are you addressing it? Increased medication to manage the neurological confusion, Dr. Sterling replied. And I have recommended psychological counseling to help both mother and daughter accept the permanence of the condition. False hope is more damaging than honest acceptance. Marcus gripped his cleaning cloth tighter, watching Dr. Sterling's reflection in the window he was supposed to be cleaning. The man was medicating away Sophia's returning sensations, dismissing her progress as psychological delusion. "This is precisely why I maintain strict protocols," Dr. Sterling continued. "When families become desperate, they start believing in miracle cures and unproven treatments. The mother has been asking questions about alternative approaches. I suspect she has been researching questionable therapies online." Marcus forced himself to continue cleaning, fighting the urge to turn around and explain exactly what Sophia was experiencing and why. 2 hours later, he was restocking supplies when Elena found him in the equipment room. Her face was pale with anger and determination. "Dr. Sterling wants to put Sophia on neurological suppressants," she said without preamble. "He says her reports of sensation are phantom symptoms that need to be managed pharmaceutically." Marcus felt his stomach drop. That would undo everything Sophia has accomplished. Those medications suppress all neurological activity, not just the pathways he considers problematic. Elena closed the door behind her. "Marcus, I need to ask you something directly. Do you believe my daughter can walk again?" Marcus met her gaze without hesitation. "Yes. I believe Sophia can walk again. Her neural pathways are responding exactly as they should to appropriate stimulation. What she is experiencing is not phantom sensation. It is genuine neurological recovery. Then I am removing her from Dr. Sterling's care immediately." Elena's voice was firm with executive decision-making. "But Marcus, I need your help. I cannot do this alone." Before Marcus could respond, the supply room door opened abruptly. Dr. Sterling stood in the doorway, his expression thunderous as he took in the scene before him. "Mrs. Vasquez, what exactly is going on here?" Elena straightened to her full height, meeting the doctor's glare with one of her own. "I am discussing my daughter's care." "With a maintenance worker?" Dr. Sterling's voice dripped with condescension. "Mrs. Vasquez, I understand that desperation can cloud judgment, but seeking medical advice from unqualified staff is both inappropriate and potentially dangerous." Marcus felt something snap inside him, the careful control he had maintained for 2 years finally breaking. "Actually, doctor," he said, his voice quiet but carrying unmistakable authority, "Mrs. Vasquez is seeking a second opinion from someone who completed 4 years of medical school and 2 years of pediatric neurological rehabilitation residency before life circumstances required a career change." Dr. Sterling's face went white, then red. "You are claiming to be a physician?" "I am claiming to have medical training that you have dismissed without investigation," Marcus replied evenly. "Training that recognizes Sophia's sensory reports as genuine neurological recovery, not phantom symptoms requiring pharmaceutical suppression." "This is preposterous," Dr. Sterling sputtered. "You are a janitor making wild claims about medical expertise. Security will escort you from the building immediately." Elena stepped between them, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "Dr. Sterling, in the 2 weeks since Mr. Chen began consulting on Sophia's case, my daughter has regained sensation in both legs and demonstrated voluntary muscle response in her left quadriceps. Under your care for 6 months, she showed no improvement whatsoever." Dr. Sterling's face cycled through several shades of red. "That is impossible. No unqualified person could achieve results that trained specialists cannot." "Then perhaps," Elena said with dangerous calm, "the question is not whether Mr. Chen is qualified, but whether your training has made you too rigid to recognize recovery when it occurs." The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. Dr. Sterling looked between Elena and Marcus, his authority suddenly feeling less absolute in the face of undeniable results. "Mrs. Vasquez, if you remove Sophia from my care based on the advice of this impostor, I cannot be responsible for the consequences." Elena smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Dr. Sterling, I have built a billion-dollar company by recognizing talent wherever I find it and ignoring credentials when they conflict with results. You are fired." The silence that followed Elena's declaration echoed through the supply room like a thunderclap. Dr. Sterling's mouth opened and closed several times before he found his voice. You cannot fire me, Mrs. Vasquez. I am the head of this department. I have contracts, board appointments, professional standing. Elena's smile remained cold and precise. Doctor, I own 47% of this rehabilitation center through my investment fund. The board answers to me, not the other way around. Your services are no longer required. Dr. Sterling's face went ashen as the reality of Elena's power became clear. He looked between her and Marcus, his professional world suddenly shifting beneath his feet. This is outrageous. You would replace trained medical staff with a janitor based on wishful thinking and desperation? Marcus stepped forward, his voice steady and calm. Doctor, with respect, I would be happy to discuss Sophia's case using proper medical terminology if you prefer. We could start with her lumbar spinal cord function, her intact proprioceptive pathways, and why your approach has been inadvertently creating learned helplessness rather than promoting neural recovery. The medical language stopped Dr. Sterling cold. His eyes narrowed as he studied Marcus with new attention. Who trained you? Where did you complete your residency? Johns Hopkins, Marcus replied quietly. Under Dr. Patricia Williams in the Pediatric Neurological Rehabilitation Program. I specialized in spinal cord injury recovery in children aged 5 to 12. Dr. Sterling's face went through several expressions before settling on barely controlled rage. If you have legitimate medical training, why are you working as a maintenance worker? What are you hiding? Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the weight of choices made from love rather than ambition. I am not hiding anything, doctor. I am raising my daughter and doing honest work to support her. Medical training does not expire, but medical careers sometimes take different paths than we originally planned. Elena watched the exchange with growing understanding. Marcus, what would Sophia's treatment plan look like under your care? Marcus glanced at Dr. Sterling, then back to Elena. Daily gentle sensory integration, starting with 15-minute sessions and building gradually. Proprioceptive exercises disguised as games. Swimming therapy in warm water to support voluntary movement without gravity stress. Most importantly, letting Sophia guide the pace and intensity based on what her nervous system tells her. And your prognosis? Elena asked, her voice tight with hope she was afraid to feel. Marcus chose his words carefully. Sophia's injury was incomplete. Her neural pathways show responsiveness to appropriate stimulation. With patient, consistent work, I believe she has an excellent chance of regaining substantial mobility. Possibly full mobility. Dr. Sterling exploded. This is medical malpractice waiting to happen. You are filling this family with false hope based on outdated training and wishful thinking. The girl's spinal cord damage is permanent and documented. Elena turned to face Dr. Sterling fully, her executive presence filling the small room. Doctor, my daughter has made more progress in 2 weeks with Marcus than in 6 months under your care. She can feel her legs again. She can contract her quadriceps muscles voluntarily. These are not phantom sensations or wishful thinking. These are measurable improvements that you dismissed as impossible. Dr. Sterling gathered himself, his professional dignity hanging by threads. Mrs. Vasquez, if you pursue this course of action, I will be forced to report this situation to the medical board. Unlicensed practice of medicine is a serious criminal offense. Marcus felt the room grow cold around him. His job, his ability to provide for Lily, everything he had built could disappear with one phone call. But before fear could take hold, he felt Elena's hand on his arm. Dr. Sterling, Elena said, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone accustomed to power, I suggest you consider your position very carefully. Marcus will be working under my direct supervision as a private contractor. I have the resources to ensure all legal requirements are met. Do you have the resources to defend your treatment failures when Sophia walks again? The threat hung in the air like a blade. Dr. Sterling looked at Marcus one final time, his expression a mixture of rage and something that might have been fear. This is not over, he said finally, then turned and walked from the room. Elena and Marcus stood in the sudden quiet, the weight of what they had just committed to settling around them like dust after an explosion. If this story is touching your heart so far, we would love to know where you are listening from around the world. Your support means everything as we share these moments of courage and hope. 3 weeks later, the rehabilitation center's hydrotherapy pool reflected the afternoon sunlight like liquid gold. Sophia floated in the warm water, supported by Marcus's steady hands beneath her back, her face serene with concentration. The pool had become their sanctuary, a place where gravity could not remind her of her limitations. "Close your eyes, Sophia," Marcus said softly. "Feel how the water holds you. Now, without thinking about it, just imagine your legs are fish swimming behind you." Sophia's breathing deepened as she followed his guidance. For months, she had tried to force her legs to work through sheer willpower. But Marcus had taught her something revolutionary: sometimes the body healed better when the mind stopped trying so hard to control it. Elena watched from the pool deck, her laptop closed beside her for the first time in years. She had rearranged her entire schedule around these sessions, and watching her daughter's transformation had become more important than any business meeting. "I can feel them moving," Sophia whispered, her eyes still closed. "Not big movements, but like they are stretching after a long sleep." Marcus felt the slight vibrations in the water, the subtle muscle contractions that indicated Sophia's neural pathways were reawakening. "That is exactly right, Sophia. Your legs are remembering how to talk to your brain again." Elena leaned forward, her voice barely audible. "Is that really happening? She is actually moving them?" Marcus nodded, his hand still supporting Sophia as tiny ripples spread across the pool surface. "The movements are small but deliberate. Her nervous system is rebuilding connections that were disrupted by the trauma." Sophia opened her eyes, tears mixing with the pool water on her cheeks. "Marcus, I think they heard me. I asked my legs to move like fish, and I felt them listening." "That is because you are learning to speak their language," Marcus said. "Your legs have been waiting for someone to ask them nicely instead of demanding that they work." Elena slipped off her shoes and rolled up her pants, stepping into the shallow end of the pool. She knelt in the water beside Sophia, her expensive clothes forgotten. "Mi amor, show me what your legs can do." Sophia took a deep breath and closed her eyes again. This time, the movements were more pronounced. Her left leg lifted slightly in the water, then her right. Small movements, barely visible, but undeniably voluntary. Elena gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. She reached out tentatively, placing her palm gently against Sophia's ankle. "Sophia, I can feel your muscles working. You are moving your legs." Sophia opened her eyes, looking down at her legs in the clear water with wonder. "They are not sleeping anymore, Mama. They are waking up." Marcus supported Sophia as she experimented with the new sensations, her movements growing more confident with each attempt. The water provided the perfect environment for her nervous system to practice without fear of falling or pain. "How long before she can walk?" Elena asked, her voice trembling with hope she was finally allowing herself to feel. "Every case is different," Marcus said carefully. "But Sophia's progress has been remarkable. Her neural pathways are responding faster than I dared hope. With continued work, possibly weeks rather than months." Sophia turned in the water to face Marcus, her expression serious despite her excitement. "Will you still help me even though Dr. Sterling is angry? Even though it might cause trouble for you?" Marcus thought about Lily at home, probably practicing ballet in their living room right now. About the promises parents made to their children, and the courage it took to keep them. About second chances and the difference between existing and truly living. "Sophia, I will help you for as long as you need me to. That is a promise." Elena reached across the water and took Marcus's hand. "We both will," she said firmly. "Whatever obstacles come, we face them together." Sophia beamed and attempted another leg movement, this one strong enough to create visible splashes. "I want to surprise everyone," she said with 80-year-old determination. I want to walk into Dr. Sterling's office and show him that my legs were never broken, just sleeping. Marcus smiled at her fierce spirit. Then we will work together to make sure your legs are completely awake when that moment comes. As the afternoon light shifted across the pool, Sophia practiced her movements with growing confidence. Each small splash in the water was a victory, each voluntary muscle contraction a step closer to the miracle that everyone except Marcus and Elena had declared impossible. The rehabilitation center's most expensive equipment sat unused in the adjacent rooms, while in a simple pool, with nothing but warm water and gentle encouragement, a little girl was learning to walk again. Sometimes the most sophisticated healing happened with the simplest tools, guided by understanding rather than protocol. Elena squeezed Marcus's hand underwater, her eyes bright with tears of joy instead of desperation. For the first time in 6 months, she was watching her daughter's dreams come back to life. 1 month later, the rehabilitation center's main therapy room had been transformed into something resembling a courtroom. Dr. Sterling sat with 2 members of the medical board, their expressions skeptical as they waited for what he had promised would be a definitive demonstration of medical malpractice. Elena stood near the windows with Marcus, both of them watching Sophia, who sat in her wheelchair at the center of the room. "Gentlemen," Dr. Sterling began, addressing the board members, "what you are about to witness is the result of untrained interference in a complex medical case. This child's family has been misled by false hope and unqualified treatment." Sophia looked up at Marcus, her eyes bright with secret knowledge. "Are you ready?" she whispered. Marcus knelt beside her wheelchair, his voice gentle but confident. "Remember what we practiced, Sophia. Listen to your legs and trust what they tell you." Elena stepped forward, addressing the room with the authority she had earned building her empire. "Gentlemen, 6 months ago my daughter was told she would never walk again. Today, she would like to show you something." Sophia placed her hands on the arms of her wheelchair and took a deep breath. Slowly, deliberately, she began to rise. Her legs, which had been limp and unresponsive for half a year, trembled with effort as they supported her weight. Dr. Sterling shot to his feet. "This is impossible. She cannot be bearing weight on damaged neural pathways." Sophia stood fully upright, her small frame swaying slightly but stable. She looked directly at Dr. Sterling, her voice clear and strong. "My legs were never broken, doctor. They were just sleeping. Marcus taught me how to wake them up gently." The board members stared in stunned silence as Sophia took her first tentative step, then another. Marcus stayed close beside her, not supporting but ready to catch her if she fell. Elena covered her mouth with both hands, tears streaming down her face as she watched 6 months of prayers being answered. Dr. Sterling's voice was strangled with disbelief. "The medical records clearly show complete lower extremity paralysis. Spinal cord trauma at the L2 vertebrae. This level of recovery is not medically possible." Sophia took 3 more steps, her movements growing steadier with each one. She stopped directly in front of Dr. Sterling, looking up at him with the profound wisdom that only children possessed after surviving something terrible. "Doctor," she said simply, "maybe the problem was not with my legs. Maybe the problem was that no one asked them what they needed to feel safe enough to work again." Marcus stepped forward, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who had earned his knowledge through both study and experience. "Gentlemen, Sophia's recovery demonstrates the effectiveness of neuroplasticity-based rehabilitation when applied with patience and proper understanding of pediatric neural development. Her spinal cord was never completely severed. The pathways required gentle reactivation, not aggressive stimulation." One of the board members found his voice. "Mr. Chen, your methods appear to have achieved remarkable results. What is your medical background?" Marcus glanced at Elena, who nodded encouragingly. "I completed my medical degree at Johns Hopkins and 2 years of pediatric neurological rehabilitation residency before family circumstances required me to seek alternative employment." Elena stepped beside Marcus, her hand resting protectively on Sophia's shoulder. "Gentlemen, I would like to offer Mr. Chen the position of Director of Pediatric Neurological Rehabilitation at this facility. His methods have accomplished what 6 months of conventional treatment could not. Sophia looked up at Marcus, her face glowing with joy and pride. Does this mean you will be my real doctor now? Not just my friend who brings towels? Marcus knelt to her level, his eyes bright with unshed tears. Sophia, it would be my honor to be your doctor. And I will always be your friend, whether I am bringing towels or helping other children learn to walk again. Dr. Sterling gathered his papers with shaking hands, his career at the center effectively ended by an 80-year-old girl who had refused to accept his limitations. As he reached the door, he turned back one final time. This does not prove anything, he said, his voice bitter with defeat. One case does not invalidate established medical practice. Sophia took another step toward him, her balance perfect now. You are right, doctor. One case does not prove everything. But it proves that sometimes the people others overlook are the ones who see what really matters. As Dr. Sterling left, Elena turned to Marcus. There will be other children like Sophia, she said. Children whose doctors have given up too soon. Will you help them too? Marcus looked around the therapy room, seeing it now not as a place where he cleaned and restocked, but as a place where miracles disguised as gentle persistence could unfold daily. Yes, he said. We will help them all. Sophia took Marcus's hand and Elena's hand, standing between them like a bridge connecting two worlds. If this touched your heart today, let us know where you are listening from around the world. Subscribe for more stories that remind us all that healing happens when we believe in the impossible and never give up hope. Outside the windows, the afternoon sun broke through the clouds, filling the room with golden light that seemed to celebrate second chances, hidden talents finally recognized, and little girls who danced their way back to dreams everyone said were lost forever.